a lot of the times you would think that we know what we know today, right? We try to think about what's going to happen tomorrow. So we plan our strategy for a longer term. But sometimes there are things, especially in the market that we're in right now, in the fintech market and in the financial services market, things are changing very fast. So sometimes you may be able to predict what's going to happen tomorrow. You would be able to derive a strategy that can go beyond the next 3 months, 6 months, 18 months. Sometimes you may not because things change in the industry. You would just have to adapt to it. And so that is the time that you have to pivot your strategy.
Join me today as I chat with Glendi Kam, the Chief Product Officer at Tessit, about her journey from working at JP Morgan to becoming part of the exciting world of fintech startups. In our conversation, Glendi emphasizes the vital role that a product management team plays in any company, highlighting the importance of diverse skill sets and the benefits of understanding different perspectives and delivering top-notch products. We also discuss the balancing act between creativity and regulatory compliance in financial services and how responsible implementation of customer feedback can lead to better product development. Throughout our conversation, Glendi shares valuable insights on topics such as the importance of continuity in product development, learning from mistakes and adapting strategies, the crucial role of communication and negotiation in product management, and we also delve into the relationship between product design and product management, how they work together and deliver successful products.
Welcome to The Way of Product. I'm your host, Caden Damiano, and this podcast is for product professionals who eventually want to run their own product org one day. The average tenure of a product leader is 2 years. 2 years because they fail to make an impact with their teams. I want to figure out how the best product teams and creative technologists tick, with the goal of putting it all into a book. And I want to document the progress and behind the scenes with you as I write it in the coming years. Do you want to get the book for free? Then jump over to wayofproduct.com, subscribe to the newsletter, and I'll send you a draft of the book's introduction in a public Google Doc. So if you've benefited from this show in any way, if you enjoy your work more, you got unblocked from limiting belief, go to wayofproduct.com, show some love, and join the newsletter crew. I appreciate it, and I promise to continue to make the show and newsletter more and more valuable as the years go on. Now, let's get back to the good stuff. Thanks for hanging out. All right. Hey, listener, welcome to The Way of Product. Today, my guest is Glendi Kam. She is the Chief Product Officer at Tessit, which is a blockchain fintech, and I think she can do a better job explaining what Tessit does than I do. Glendi, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show. So a little bit about the background of the company and also my background. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Tessit, which is a blockchain payment company. So we have our primary customers are banks. We help them to put blockchain technology on their banking platform so that to facilitate this really efficient way of making payments. So far, we have transacted 1.3 trillion on our platform. So that is a pretty significant number. Before joining Tessit, actually, I have been with big banks for pretty much my entire career. I spent the last 9 years in JP Morgan, and I spent the last 5 launching open banking and API. At the end of that, I really figured out that, I've been during that time also because I worked in the innovation center at JP Morgan. So I work with a lot of fintech. And it was really interesting to see how fast and how agile they are. And so at approaching the end, I was like, okay, I need to figure out what I want to do because I spent a long time in the same program. And that was the time that I figured that, I really want to join a fintech and because I want the experience that really agile, very fast, very innovative environment, the fintech industries. And that was the time that Tessit and I met. And so the rest is everything that we have built in the last 2 years. And we have some really cool products and very exciting roadmaps also.
Wow. Yeah, that's like looking at your LinkedIn, there is like a consistent theme of like you building on top of the last experience. I mean, if you look at my LinkedIn, I'm jumping from like real estate, fintech, like tertiary lending, and then agricultural fintech. I'm like all over the place. I'm a golden retriever when it comes to my career, but there's a focus in your experience. Like, do you feel like a lot of your success in your career is attributed to this industry focus of the finance space and the fintech space?
Actually, that's a good point. I guess it's also because LinkedIn probably show more about the last maybe 10, 15 years. Earlier in my career, actually, I didn't know what industry I want to be in. So I was actually in the consulting industry for a while because I really want to learn more about different industries. So I actually had experience in publishing, financial services, of course, insurance, and also retail. But I finally find out that I'm really interested in financial services. And that's how I decided that this is where I want to be. But even within, and also the reason I want to be in financial services is there are so many different areas. Even within banking, there are so many different areas. Looking at my past experience in even within banks, I have done many different things. Actually, that leads to where I am today. And also that actually helped a lot for a product role. I was in technology. I worked in RegTech. I was doing solution architecture. I was in product. And so I was in many different roles. That actually gave me a very good perspective from different area. And when you're going into a product role, that is very important. I always thought that product is almost like a center of everything. You need to be very close to your customer. You need to understand the market. So I work closely with our marketing officer. I work closely with our sales team. And then also you also need to be really close to the technology. So we have to be very close to the engineering team. We almost sit together, whiteboarding solution, because you need to give them idea where the product is going so that they can design it, not just for today, but for tomorrow as well. And then also all the other areas within a company or within an organization, implementation, onboarding, client success, client service, those product needs to work really close with. So I think even though I have been in banking or financial services, just because I've been in different area really help out with my role as a product officer.
What made you want to go from I'm assuming management consulting is what you meant by that, your background?
Technology consulting and management consulting, yes.
Yeah. So what made you want to actually go in-house basically and not be a consultant anymore? Because I have seen a trend where management consultants are like, oh, there's an alternative career path to go into like McKinsey. I could do what I want to do, which is like the strategy work and everything in-house.
Mhm.
Like what triggered that change in your career trajectory?
It wasn't really a planned change. I wasn't thinking that, oh, it's time's up. I need to do something else. It was not like that. It was more like it was also at the time that I want a change. I want to do something different. So in consulting, you do help out with solution. And the really fun and interesting thing about consulting is you acquire a lot of experience. You learn a lot from project to project, from client to client, right? But you're always a solution provider. A lot of the time you may or may not be able to drive a much higher level strategy. So that is also at a point in time in my career that I'm ready to do something different. I've been pretty comfortable and I want to step out of my comfort zone of being a consultant and then do something different, completely different. Just also to challenge myself.
Yeah. And I've noticed this in design agencies, like the agency business model is being turned on its head with the higher and higher priority on product, organizations being brought in house, and then design is starting to be done. This isn't a new thing, but design used to be a cost center. And I think product and technology used to be seen as a cost center for most of business history. And with the popularity of Silicon Valley, that led to, now this is an anthropology podcast on the history of work, but it's led to this realization that technology could be a profit center. And so that means hiring design in-house, hiring product in-house, and that disrupts the agency consultancy business model where you hire consultants to burst capacity. Hey, how should I use my resources to get to my goals? And now they have
Mhm.
people inside now doing that. And so what's the value of a management consultant if we have X management consultants in-house that could do the same work and we've budgeted for that. And so at least on the design agency space, I've noticed that now it's more of a partnership model to help with birth capacity. But for management consultancies, I'm seeing a lot of hate on the social zeitgeist for the like what consultants are
Mm.
doing. But so for you, the challenge of being able to actually go in-house, I think you just adapted with the market. You just see, hey, like if I'm in-house, I could actually influence the actual strategy and then build a team around executing that strategy. And I know there's there's a logic behind it, but didn't that just sound more fun to you?
Yeah, yes. And also it is not just a mindset shift. I think there are also practical practices behind it. Bringing consultants in to help out with certain solutioning, help out with certain projects versus building your in-house knowledge. And it's about the continuity,
Mhm.
really. That is also a very big part of what a product person needs to think about, product officer needs to think about is when is the right time that you need to invest in building up that in-house knowledge so that you can have that continuity versus when do you just hire someone in to bring in their external knowledge, the knowledge that they acquire through different projects, different experiences in the industry to help out with a maybe even just a small portion of your strategy, help you execute just part of your strategy, but knowing that you may not be able to take that and continues to grow on it. So that is sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. It's also part of the strategy, how you want to pivot from something short term to something longer term, and how you want to continue certain things. If at this point, maybe this is just something that is very transient, how do you grow it into something continuous? So that is also this is also part of the strategy of a product officer's
How
responsibility.
did you learn that lesson?
Um, Unfortunately, through mistakes.
So tell me about a time. Tell me about it. Tell me about a time.
I think we all learn. I think the best lessons that we learn are usually through mistakes, and then also maybe not directly my mistakes, but also
Yeah,
watching
learning
some
from
of
other
the things
people's
that happen
mistakes.
in the
Absolutely. Yeah.
industry. Yeah, yep. So those are a lot of the times you would think that we know what we know today, right? We try to think about what's going to happen tomorrow. So we plan our strategy for a longer term. But sometimes there are things, especially in the market that we're in right now, in the fintech market and in the financial services market, things are changing very fast. So sometimes you may be able to predict what's going to happen tomorrow. You would be able to derive a strategy that can go beyond the next 3 months, 6 months, 18 months. Sometimes you may not because things change in the industry. You would just have to adapt to it. And so that is the time that you have to pivot your strategy.
Yeah. I like what you mentioned. Like the goal is continuity when you're building a product org. And that really stood out to me that the what I've learned through like 100 interviews so far is that, and you look at the
Mhm.
timelines of successful people, and I'm a big biography listener. I try to read. I have kids, so it's a little bit difficult. So I'm going to be honest, intellectually honest with the audience. I listen to more audiobooks than I read like physical books, but is that it usually takes 4 to 5 years to actually make an impact. And with the average tenure of an IC being 2 years. And so it's like, how do you maintain the continuity like for at least 5 years so that you can actually see the fruits of your labors?
Right now, 5 years is a really long time, especially in the fintech or in industry that we're in. But if you look at past success, we are able to pivot very fast. And also we're able to build our products very quickly. Now, I think that also has a lot to do with how we're still a smaller organization. So the teams, the product team, the engineers, we work really close together. So we're able to build our product. We don't just create a big plan that we deliver in 5 years, right? So we build one at a time. So we build our real-time payment platform, and then we have customers on it. We transacted significant amount of volume on it. We build our interbank payment network also on the blockchain platform. And then we build our multi-currency solution, which is also when we're building it, we're also already planning that we build a foundation. This is not just for currency. We're building it for other assets as well. We're building it for anything that can be tokenized so that we would be able to grow our business. So this is the plan that we have. We don't just look at, 5 years later, I'm going to have all these things. So we actually plan it in a way that in 3 months, we're going to have add on this feature. In 6 months or in 12 months, we're going to add on another feature. And then how we are continuing to build on the feature But we also have to think about, as we're building it, we have to build it in a way that is very flexible, that is extensible. Like the multi-currency platform that we built is a good example. We know that FX is where we want to go. We need to build out a multi-currency platform. But then when we are building it, we want to make sure that the foundation, the infrastructure that we build would be able to support more than currency. So that is something that it's not just product managers' idea in their head, but also something that needs to be communicated very clearly with the rest of the organization so that everybody's marching to the same goal.
What heuristics do you use to plan out 90 days, 120 days? Like you, what I admire about your answer is that, okay, we need to have this, and then we need to have this, and you have a strong opinion, probably informed opinion on, okay, this is what's going to get us to the next level, then this. Like what are like the heuristics or like principles that you guys use to come to those very opinionated, decisive conclusions?
Yeah, so a lot of that is also because we've already have a very robust platform that we already have customers transacting on our platform. So we are able to have very good information about, we work really closely with our customer, which are banks, and also we get a lot of feedback from their customers. So we're not only looking at our direct customer, we're also looking at one level beyond, so the customers of the bank. So understanding their needs, listening to them, understanding where things are going so that we can come up with ideations about market viable products. And then that is leading to where the company's or overall product strategy or product direction is. A lot of those ideas are generated from feedback from every customer or customer level two that are coming to us. And then while we are doing that, not only we have to understand what the needs are and how we are able to create these viable products for the needs. Creating, I know the term MVP is, everybody talk about that, but also we are not just building MVP. We need to build MCP, minimum commercializable product, something that we can actually use to test the market, to understand that the way that we think our customers' needs are XYZ, and are we really building platform? Are we building product features that satisfy what they want?
It also sounds any blockchain company probably has a strong vision of like where they see the world. But so think big, work small is what I'm hearing here, where you have the vision and like the mission of the company, like the why, but how you go about doing it is working in like short feedback loop cycles. I love I like the phrase minimum commercializable product. For the listener, could you break down like what commercializable means to you?
Commercializable meaning that you can actually bring it to a customer and they are willing to use it and that you're willing to pay for it. I think that is very important. Back to one of the points that you talked about earlier is the evolution of a product organization. I think at this point, revenue is not only residing in the sales organization. I think product organization also has a very important role in the company's revenue, and almost sometimes, depending on the organization, sometimes may not necessarily have their own PL now in L line, right? But then I think it is still very important. So I think while product managers needs to have a vision of what they want to build, but they also have to be very realistic about whether the product is going to be marketable with the customer, existing customer or potential customer. Or if you're developing new vertical, how are you going to verify that what you build is actually going to be going to have a good product market fit?
I've come to a similar conclusion. Part of that being that every time a company I worked for flopped, it's because product didn't see marketing or sales as peers. And yeah, but
that is a big problem. I think product and marketing and sales needs to work really close together. So I almost see if you look at product, if it is in how they interact with the rest of the organization, it's almost like a star. That product needs to have a certain relationship with marketing and sales. So that is one triangle there. And then product needs to have also very close relationship with the engineering infrastructure, the software part, and also the hardware or the infrastructure part. And also to be able to continue the success, product needs to have a very close relationship with client success and client servicing team within the organization. So it's almost like three triangle linking them together, but product linking them together.
yeah, it's the glue. And having the intellectual humility to say that I might be good at product work, but I haven't driven 3 million in ARR like the revenue org has. And what I love about commercializable, because this is the company I work for right now, my experience with tech companies is that in a pure tech company, the sales team usually isn't as talented as the technology and engineering and product hires. Like they under index on revenue, building up like a great rev ops org. And this company I'm at right now, Produce Pay, the sales team is amazing. Like and then the product and design team is amazing, and the engineering team is amazing. And that you'd think that lead to like better cohesiveness, but everyone has experience, like seeing the other team suck. And now, so actually,
Well,
there is like a lot there. It leads to tension. I think healthy tension about a healthy tension of having worthy rivals, right? And you shouldn't see them as rivals, but the rival, in my sense, is like the Simon Sinek, where this is someone that you're not competing with. They just make you better because they challenge you to improve yourself. But I've never heard of the term a commercial org before, and this is the first company with a commercial org. So it's like a very mature sales company, and it's the reason like we're not never did layoffs and are still hiring during the probably next biggest recession since 2008. And I actually just learned what the commercial word means. And so this is something that we don't beta test. This is something we could actually go to the marketing team, set a campaign to generate leads, send those leads to sales to close those leads, and then send it into the product so we can start learning. Like minimum commercializable means that. It doesn't mean, product team like sets up like a beta test or directly reaches out to the customer. It's no, how can we do like a very mini launch to start learning if this is going to provide value to the customer? And we frame it to the customer like it's a real product. Is that what you mean by that? Or do you actually like, do you couch it and, this is beta?
it depends. It depends on where we are with certain product, and also depending on the product features. I totally agree with you, and I have seen it firsthand in previous experience that sales team would get feedback from clients and directly trying to influence the decision on how the product should be built. I've seen that over and over again. Sometimes I think one big mistake that people may be confused, and then those decisions would go directly from sales into engineering, right? That's actually a very dangerous situation because we need to be very careful between customer feedback and product requirement. You cannot just take customer feedback and directly just feed into a product. Planning needs to be there, because sometimes customer feedback needs to, we need to take that. That's very important. And that's also something that I mentioned earlier, that a lot of the product roadmap, how we drive that, is based on a lot of feedback from our customer. And we're lucky that we were able to get that. But planning needs to be part of that. How it become a more coherent product, that's also very important, because otherwise you'll just be like constantly taking feedback and just slap it into the product, and then you have a quote. And then it's not something that is consistent. It may not be something that you can continue to grow. And so that is a very important process that I think any product organization needs to put in place, is how do we collect this information? How do we put this information into a process so that we can design it appropriately, so that we can also put into a proper timeline to roll these features out. And then also making sure that we build out the infrastructure and a good foundation that we can also continue to grow on.
Yeah, and solving problems with systems, not copy band-aids and making a new form to meet this one edge case. Yeah, so basically products is a type of filter. And also,
it's just a filter. Also, I think it's almost like a mediator.
Yeah, I love that. Like a facilitator of the work. And yes, the best product manager, I interviewed a couple product managers that are trained up in Intuit's like flavor of product management, and Intuit trains their product managers to be facilitators of the work. So not by unblocking, but actually like helping frame the problem space in a way that is able to like get the most out of the design and engineering resources, where you're setting up the challenge, the rationale for what we're working on and why it's important, and in what order are we going to be doing all the things. And so that you could just let these design and engineering resources just let it rip and solve the problems. And then you're also providing like the KPIs of, this is how we know this problem. If it's solved, this is how we know it'd be successful. Because if you don't have a good product org in between like sales and marketing who, by the nature of their jobs, have a closer feedback loops with customers, then you're implementing ideas, not specs.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And very interesting because we were talking about like facilitator, mediator. I find out that in my previous trainings, I had a lot of training, especially when I was working in bank. The most valuable one, which actually helped, you wouldn't even believe that has anything to do with product management. The most valuable training that I had, which actually helped a lot with my product management practice, is the negotiation training
Okay, go ahead. Go on.
that I went. I know there's something you want to say, but I actually found that was the most valuable training. It's not just because of you constantly need people to agree with you. The negotiation training actually take you back to how to understand the perspective of others. And so that actually is not just about winning an argument. It's about how we can actually come to a solution that everybody agrees.
Yeah, proper negotiation is that gasp or whatever that was when you said that was because that has probably been the most high leverage skill that's skyrocketed in my career is negotiation. Because proper negotiation is us against the problem, not us versus a counterpart. And I think a lot of historical negotiation training has been very zero sum, like your counterpart in the negotiation is framed as your enemy. But actually, I'm speaking at my alma mater. And before I go speak, they asked me, hey, can you just list like what books have influenced your career? And one of them was Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss.
Yes. Yep. I read that book.
And what I like about, because I've read a lot of negotiation books, because I'm just thinking if I could properly influence, I don't need to fight, right? If I'm able to articulate and then understand the motivations of the other person, we don't need to fight or debate. Like it's like a negotiation is not a debate. Like debates happens when you're not a good negotiator. If you're a good negotiator, it's not a debate anymore. It's a problem solving discussion. And
Exactly. So I think that is actually a very important soft skill for a product manager. I think that is really important.
Yeah. And I heard a great quote from Alex Hormozi's podcast where soft skills they're just called soft skills because they're hard to measure. They're actually hard skills. They're just hard to measure. And so people just treat it as fuzzy because you can measure the impact by the amount of like successful conversations you've had, the ease you have to partner with people. And then also, I would even argue that it should be considered a basic competency. Like I were to hire product managers that they take negotiation training because they don't like nothing hurts like a partnership with design engineering more than telling them how to do their jobs.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. Tell me more.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break from our scheduled programming. If you're enjoying this podcast and you've gotten any value out of it so far, I have a special request for you. I'm currently writing a book on product team collaboration and I want to get the message out there. So if you want to take a moment and hit subscribe in your podcast app, that would mean the world to me and it would be super helpful in booking better guests, getting better content out there, and getting the message of this book out to more people. So whether you have to pause this podcast or you like multitasking while listening to it, just take a moment and hit subscribe on the show page and show your support. Again, thanks for listening. Now back to the show.
Within a product organization, you have product manager, you have product designer, right? Product designer designed a lot of the user experience and maybe even interface with the product manager, product designer are very different people. The way that they think are extremely different. So just to manage that relationship between the two, or they manage the relationship with each other, that actually is pretty challenging. And that's the reason why I think the negotiation training is really important because you really have to understand the other person's perspective. You really have to, not just perspective, you really have to understand how their thinking works. We don't want everybody to be the same. You don't want a product organization that everybody think exactly the same because then you're not going to have good product. You need people with different way of thinking, different way of communicating, different way of doing things. This is how you actually would be able to, especially in an innovation organization, this is not something that we just continue to do day to day. You set out a path and people just follow and create great product feature, right? We actually need people to come up with new ideas. We need people to challenge each other. So that is something that highly encourage within my organization. I actually love the fact that I have people who are very different within my product organization.
Yeah, there's a great biography called A Team of Rivals, and it's about Abraham Lincoln. Have you read that? Yeah. What's interesting about Abraham Lincoln is that he was the dark horse candidate for that election that he won. There was all these way more famous, way more influential in society candidates that had low regard for Lincoln, thought he was a goofy tall guy, and they also publicly disparaged him. They were rivals, right? And I think they were threatened by Lincoln because there was obviously something about him that let him win that election. And what Lincoln did is he hired all of his competitors into his cabinet. And by the end of his presidency, that was cut short, they all respected him.
That's great leadership.
Because he believed the same thing you did, where he hired all of his rivals because he knew that they were talented individuals, even though they weren't buddies. They were able to get amazing work done during a very hard time in America's history.
Mhm. Yep, that's very important. I think having different opinion, different way of looking at things is really important in a product organization. But also at the same time, you need to be able to work together. Otherwise, you're just going to be arguing all day long and nothing's going to happen.
So you pointed out the relationship between product design and product management, which is a problem I have been thinking about for years now. Because when I have a good product manager, I'm like, oh, I see the value. And then when I have a bad product manager, I'm like, why do we need these people? And so I flip flop because it just depends on my mood and how I'm not clicking or whatever, or how good they are at their job. And so let's focus on that. Like, what have you learned through the school of the hard knocks? Not make them buddies, but I guess make them like a good team to like work well together.
I've had some very challenging situation before. But what I learned is very different challenging situation, but they all come down to one thing, is communication. I realized that people have very different communication style, and usually that's what caused the problem. That they all come down to the same. Sometimes people may not be able to express what they want or how they see the problem. Sometimes it's not how people perceive, or they just don't want to accept, right? But you know what? I also noticed that everybody wants to make the best of the product. Nobody wants to screw up the product, right? It's just people see things differently. So a lot of the times, it's really important to people to bring people to understand the other person's perspective, to understand where the other person is coming from. More so to just talk about what you want. I think that is the really challenging. That is the really important thing. And also, I don't want to say there are bad product managers, because I think different products just need different product. Also, at the different stage of the product needs different people. And they need very different skill set. You are very fortunate if you have someone who can take from the very early inception phase all the way to delivery. If you have that person, and I'm very lucky that I had that many times in my life. But also, I noticed that some people are stronger in one stage of a product lifecycle than the other. So that is something that, as a manager or as someone leading the product organization, need to recognize. What are the skill set what are the strongest suit of whoever in your product organization that would help out in the different phase of the product lifecycle?
Yeah, so it's more of an org design problem, and like making sure that the right people are on the bus for the right time in that company's story. So that I agree with that completely. Personally, for me, I've interviewed at very early Series A startups, and the expectations on designers is so beyond what I care about. My competencies are very technical, and I like refining systems and making them better. And I've noticed that growth stage, companies where it's like Series C is like my sweet spot because of my personal talents, right? Who I am as a professional. And then I've interviewed at the big ones, the big companies that are very established and already successful. And I'm like, oh no, I don't think my personal talents would provide a lot of value here at an IC level. And so I really appreciate that sentiment where it's maybe it's not a bad person, it's probably just a bad fit.
Yeah, it's bad fit at the bad time, probably. Like that person would probably do really well, even maybe at the very beginning, just during the inception phase, because they're good at coming up with ideas. They're coming up with out of the box thinking, right? But when you ask them to go into delivery, they struggle because they just don't want to get
They don't
into
want
the
to. They don't want to make a
details.
backlog
They
and
won't-
groom it. And
Yes. We don't want to understand why the engineer did it this way versus that way, why they designed the database in such a way that prohibit the expansion of the product. They don't want to get into those details. There's some people, they like that because they're going to be like, if someone tells me that this is not doable, I'm going to dig into the detail to figure out why this is not doable. And they actually enjoy that. They enjoy that investigation. They enjoy that going into the detail. Everybody's different. And sometimes it's extremely difficult to find someone who can go from that very imaginative, very creative to the person who to be able to do something very detail oriented, very meticulous, down to the detail, down to the delivery of things. You just have to figure out where everybody fits.
And that's why CPOs get paid the big bucks, because the directors or the VPs that you choose are going to influence what kind of people get hired. Because if you hire a detail-oriented person that has a strong analytics competency, and they're going to hire more people like that. And if you hired someone like that at an early stage or growth stage where you're still building out the infrastructure, like that one decision, like the ripple effect of that one decision is going to hurt really bad. So that's why.
I love you brought that up because I actually was early on in my career, I was actually warned by one of my managers that just be very careful. People tend to hire people who are similar to them. So now I overcompensate. I went to get this high. People who are different.
Yeah. If you like overcompensate, it's like you go from like the one extreme we don't want to the other. So for like thought experiments, you don't want the detailed delivery person because you don't have any instrumentation or infrastructure set up to even like measure anything, which is like their whole competency. Yeah. But you could also be in like a growth stage company and go the opposite direction where the PM just wants to be the ideas person and ship stuff. And it's like in growth, in the growth example, you're like, I need someone that can do both. But yeah, that's the risk, right? It's either if you overcorrect, it's like, oops, you mess up the other way. That's such an interesting insight.
Yeah. So it's not so much like you're looking for people who are different from you, but you have to look at, because it's an organization. You have to look at the overall product organization. How many people you have that are very analytical? How many people you have that are very creative? Who are the people very meticulous? Who are the people who are very imaginative and they don't want the detail, but then they create the most amazing high-level design of anything, right? So it's not just, if I have too many, I just go swing, or if I am type A, I'm going to find someone who is completely the opposite of me. You have to look at the overall organization so that you have a good balance within the organization.
Glendi, this has been, I don't feel like we are, I want to respect your time, but this has been an amazing conversation so far, and I don't feel ready to wind down. But do you feel like there's any loose ends to this conversation that you want to tie off before we sign off?
I think I really enjoyed the conversation. We didn't set out any plan, but then I thought this was really good conversation and also some very thought-provoking discussion that we had. I really enjoy it.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. That's the goal. Ideally, and this is a little native ad to anyone that wants to be a guest. I know that a lot of the podcast guests, they're coming on with an agenda to promote something, and it feels like a chore. Got to get the marketing, got to hit the circuit, the PR circuit. Now, if you want to come on the show, like I want this to be the fun stop in your tour of podcasts. It makes me very happy that you enjoyed the conversation. I'm always worried about making that happen. The guests, before we sign off, Glendi, is there anything that you want to say to the audience before we drop? And maybe how to get a hold of you if you want people to get a hold of you?
Yes. So I'm on LinkedIn and my profile is public, so anybody can connect with me. So it's just Glendi Kam on LinkedIn. And I think one last thought is, I think that's really important is in this industry, in this industry, innovation is important, and building an organization that to be able to innovate and also to be able to work, especially in the financial services, to be able to work within the regulatory parameter is also very important. That's also play into like how do you balance the two, and majority of our conversation was also on like the people that you hire. That's very important. And Tessit has been doing a great job. And I think that we are balancing creativity versus, and also creativity also with making sure that we're doing everything within the regulatory parameter.
Glendy, thank you so much for coming on the show. You have a good one.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Hey, listener, thanks again for listening to The Way of Product. As we power down today's session on the fusion of creativity and technology, let's solidify the energy you've gotten from our dialogue today. If you've gleaned insights or strategies that could turbocharge your projects, I have a small but powerful ask. Swing by the platform where you're hearing this and leave a review. Think of it as your digital high five to us. It's a fuel that propels this content to more creative technologists like you, amplifying the impact of the shared knowledge. So until our next interview, keep pioneering and pushing the envelope. Thanks again for lending your ears and your imagination to our community. Catch you on the next download. Today's episode is sponsored by Alchemy, a name you might not be familiar with yet, but one you'll definitely want to remember. Here's why. You know, most meetings can be a drain, right? Well, I was tired of that. Tired of good energy getting sucked out of potentially explosive creative sessions. So I decided to do something about it. That's why I started Alchemy. Think of Alchemy as a special ops team of a collaboration. We're the ones you call for remote or on-site workshops when you need to get your product team aligned and moving without the usual drag. No more endless circles or feeling like you're herding cats. So, no more endless circles or feeling like you're herding cats. I've been there, stuck in the muck of misalignment, watching the clock while creativity fizzles out. That's not how breakthroughs happen. That's why Alchemy workshops are built differently. They're the antidote. They're the antidote. That's why Alchemy workshops are built differently. They're the antidote to the common meeting. And because I believe in the power of what we're doing, I'm offering a special to Way of Product listeners, especially you who listened all the way to the end. If your team's feeling stuck, let's talk. I'm opening up my calendar for free 25-minute coaching calls to audit your team's collaboration issues. We dissect the problem areas. In that call, we'll dissect the problem areas, and I'll share techniques and tactics tailored to get you unlocked. In that call, we'll dissect the problem areas, and I'll share techniques and tactics tailored to get you unblocked and back in the flow. Think of it as a turbo boost for your team's productivity. So here's what you do. Visit wayofproduct.com/workshops. Get all the details, sign up for your free coaching call, and let's start turning those meeting groans into high fives. All right. I'll let you get back to your day. Thanks for listening to today's episode. All right. I'll let you get back to your day. And thanks again for listening to today's episode. All right. I'll let you get back to your day. All right. I'll talk to you soon. And remember, with Alchemy, it's not just a meeting, it's a turning point. Is everyone gone yet? Because this next offer is for you. And this is because you listened all the way to the end of this episode. Today's episode is sponsored by Alchemy, a name you might not be familiar with yet, but one you'll definitely want to remember. I don't know about you, but most meetings are terrible. Long circular discussions, weeks with no progress. I was tired of that. Tired of good energy getting sucked out of potentially explosive creative sessions. So I finally decided to do something about it. That's why I started Alchemy. Think of Alchemy as a special ops for team collaboration. We're the ones you call for remote or on-site workshops where you need to get your product team aligned and moving without the usual drag. No more endless circles or feeling like you're herding cats. I've been there. I've been stuck in the muck of misalignment. watching the clock while creativity just fizzles out. That's not how breakthroughs happen. Alchemy workshops are built differently. They are the cure to the common meeting. And because I believe in the power of what we're doing, I'm offering something special to Way of Product listeners. If your team's feeling stuck, let's talk. I'm opening my calendar for free 25-minute coaching calls to audit your team's collaboration issues. We'll dissect the problem areas, and I'll share techniques and tactics tailored to your situation to help you get unblocked and back in the flow. Think of it as a turbo boost for your team's productivity. So here's what you do. Visit wayofproduct.com/workshops. Get all the details, sign up for your free coaching call, and let's start turning those meeting groans into high fives. All right, thanks for listening to the full episode. And remember, with Alchemy, it's not just a meeting, it's a turning point. Talk to you soon.